I'll just ask, why are people racist?
Oh, learning histories.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's most.
I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of it.
Mhm.
It's it's a combination of things, but at the end of the day, it's like it's learning history. It's the culture in which they thrive and learn and experience the world. I mean, it just nobody's born racist at the end of the day.
Mhm.
When you hear
Yeah.
the discussion in psychology of nature versus nurture and all that, it's like behavior. We understand now about the world that nature and nurture simultaneously work to shape behavior, but racism is not something that's genetic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that, and they describe fairly well in the episode that a lot of it does just come from ignorance, essentially, in the places and where they grow up, where they hear these things, or a lack of empathy. And there's a clear distinction of us versus them. That seems to be where a lot of it starts, and it becomes these little implicit things they don't necessarily notice or think about. Where it's like when you else as a caricature color, that's a racist thing to do, even if you don't think you're being racist. When you hold people to a different standard because of their skin color, that's a racist thing to do. And so it's those kind of things that a lot of people don't even acknowledge are happening. That seems to be just a lack of information about it and a lack of exposure. And that was
Mhm.
actually one important thing they said, is that a lot of these people are really insulated from being
Mhm.
around these other types of people that come from different cultures and backgrounds and of different skin color. Is they don't get to see them as humans. They see them as the other because they're not around them. They don't interact with them, and that's what segregation has always led to, as an us versus them. So that seems to be, I think, one of the most important factors among, as Shane said, if you grow up in a context where there's like racist epithets and things like that are constantly being spouted, then it's really hard to get away from something like that.
I see. Yeah, and it's like at the end of the day, it's like groups. People associate themselves with their groups. They grew up in this area, and this all their friends are talking this way, and they have this mentality, so they just adopt instead of thinking on their own. Why do we do that? Why do we have teams? Why do we fight over not just like whatever politics or society, but also like sports, football, right? Like, why do people get? If I'm a Chelsea fan, why would I get mad at a Manchester United fan? Soccer world or whatever. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. So, the first thing is that for whatever reason, we're very social animals, and I think that there's probably a very clear link through evolutionary history to look at in the context of survival. We're one of those species that does better when it works together. And there's quite a number. I think a fairly large number of species tend to be somewhat social, and they travel in groups and herds and that sort of thing, and that allows them to be pretty successful. Um, Although a lot of people like to speak to us being omnivorous, the vast majority of the history of humans is like we're opportunists more than anything. And what that meant is that if the more we work together, the more successful we were at finding food and shelter and protecting one another, you know. And so I think that essentially what has happened is that for however we can speak to this, that I don't fully understand, but there is something reinforcing about proximity with others. And so what happens though is that once you get beyond a small bubble, then it's hard to include others in
Mm-hmm.
that size, and you can, like, it can grow out, but then people who are not part of that group that's already sort of self-insulated, those are now no longer part of the others that you want to be close to. And so there seems to be something in this where teams are sort of just these little micro societies that we belong to, and we often belong to a lot of different ones, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. But that seems to be the fact that for whatever reason, humans are reinforced by having a sort of close knit group of people that they protect and that protect them.
And I still think, in that regard, the hardest thing to discuss around that is I'm still not sure if I'm supposed to cheer for Chelsea or Manchester United. I still have not figured that out yet. Like, I don't know which team I'm supposed to be on.
You're not supposed to know. You just know. It's like you watch this team and you like him, and that's it. I don't know.
It's a deficit in my learning, I guess. Like, I don't have that awareness. I can't do it. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
As you can tell, all the comedy in our show comes from Shane.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's timing. It's all timing.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. How like I don't know why I like Manchester United. I just like grew up and like I like David Beckham kicking the ball. I thought that was pretty cool, and
You
so
got
I
to
just
bend it
stuck
like
with
Beckham,
it.
as far as I understand.
Exactly, exactly. You just gotta stick with it. But I feel like nowadays groups, um, well, nowadays groups can't really interfere just because we're all like separated. Everyone's in home, on their computers, on their phones and whatnot. So I feel like now more than ever, more in grouping is happening. We're not mixing with different kinds of people. Why that happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, the internet was is a very interesting tool because it made everybody loud, really loud, 1,000 times louder than they had ever been before. They could reach all over the place in the world. And the benefit of that is that it could allow for a ton more mixing of ideas and contact with different people. It could also expand what would be a very niche group of people who wouldn't really find each other, who have very bizarre, off color, wrong ideas, to be very loud together and to find one another so that they build their own little echo chambers. And so it allowed the voices of people who are completely wrong about things that normally, you know, if you were to go to the grocery store and someone comes up and they're like, did you know that reptiles rule our country? You'd be like, whoa. Hi everybody, here's a card to my friend Shane. He deals with crisis management. he's, he's gonna help you out. But now that person, they don't, you know, they just go online and they find 10 other people like them who are willing to listen and or who believe it already, and then they all just reinforce one another's behavior when it comes to these things. And so you're right, the fact that we've gone inside has actually probably made this problem worse. And I think with the rapid rise of the QAnon movement in the United States as an example of really insane conspiracy theories, like right up there with flat earthers,
Mm-hmm.
that
I'm not too familiar. Sorry, I had to stop
oh
you.
no,
The
that's
Q
okay.
what?